The night was cold, and the forest was quiet except for the sound of Ethan's boots on the damp ground. His truck had broken down miles back, and there was no signal on his phone. The moon hid behind thick clouds, leaving only a pale silver glow to guide his way. He kept walking, hoping to reach the highway before midnight. Then he heard it, a sound that froze him in place. It was faint at first, like a soft whimper carried by the wind. Not human, not animal, but something in between. He turned his head, listening. And the sound came again, trembling, desperate, almost like a cry for help. Ethan's instincts told him to keep walking. He didn't know what kind of creature could make that noise, but something deep inside urged him to find out. Slowly, he followed the sound through the misty trees. Pushing past low branches and wet leaves, the crying grew louder. He moved carefully now, each step sinking into the muddy ground. Finally, he reached a small clearing, and that's when he saw her. She was sitting on the ground, knees pulled to her chest, shivering. Her hair was long and silver, shining faintly in the moonlight. Her eyes, large, glowing faint blue, looked up at him with both fear and hope. Her skin had a pale, almost luminous tone, not like anything he had seen before. Her clothes were torn, dirty, and clung to her like they'd been soaked in rain. For a moment, Ethan thought she might be a lost child in some kind of strange costume, but then she moved, and the light from her eyes flickered in a way no human could do. His breath caught in his throat. She was not human. They stared at each other, neither speaking. Ethan took a cautious step forward. "It's okay," he said softly. Though he knew she wouldn't understand, the girl flinched at his voice, but didn't run. Instead, she hugged her knees tighter, shivering. Ethan slowly crouched down, keeping some distance. "Are you hurt?" he asked. She tilted her head like she was trying to understand the sound of his words. Then, she opened her mouth, but only a faint, strange tone came out, almost like a whisper made of music. He felt a chill run down his spine. This was real. This was something far beyond anything he had imagined. The girl tried to stand, stumbled, and fell forward. Ethan rushed to catch her before she hit the ground. Her skin was cold, unnaturally cold, and her small hands clutched at his jacket, refusing to let go. "It's okay, I'll help you," he said. She looked up into his eyes, and for a moment he saw something there: fear, exhaustion, and trust, all mixed together. He didn't know who she was or where she came from, but leaving her here wasn't an option. Then, in the distance, Ethan heard something else. A faint humming sound, mechanical, moving through the trees. The girl's head snapped up, her glowing eyes wide with panic. She shook her head violently, pointing into the darkness as if warning him. The sound grew louder, joined by a soft, pulsing light weaving between the trees. Someone or something was searching for her, and they were close. Ethan's heartbeat quickened. He didn't know why, but he felt certain that if those lights reached them, bad things would happen. He looked down at the girl, who was now gripping his arm tightly. Her eyes pleaded with him without a single word. "All right, come on," he whispered, pulling her to her feet. She stumbled, but he caught her and half carried her toward the thicker part of the forest. Branches scraped his face and arms, and the girl's breathing was fast and shaky. Behind them, the lights moved faster, and the humming grew sharper, almost angry. They ran until Ethan's legs burned. Finally, he spotted an old, half-broken shed hidden under vines. He pushed the door open with his shoulder, the rusty hinges creaking loudly. Inside, it was dark and smelled of old wood and rain. He guided her inside, shutting the door quietly. For a moment, they both stood there in silence, catching their breath. Ethan could still hear the searchers outside, moving slowly now, scanning. The girl looked at him, then reached under her torn clothes. She pulled out a small, flat object hanging from a cord around her neck, a strange metal card with glowing lines running through it. She pressed it into his hand, her fingers trembling. Her voice was soft but urgent as she said a single alien word he didn't understand. The meaning, but he felt the weight of it, like it was something important. Something dangerous outside. The humming moved away, the lights fading into the mist. Ethan looked down at the strange card in his hand, then back at the girl. He had no idea what he had just gotten himself into, but he knew one thing: his life would never be the same. The night felt heavier now, the mist wrapping around the shed like a blanket. Ethan's breath was still uneven, his heart beating loud in his ears. The girl sat on the floor, her glowing eyes fixed on the strange card he now held. Her small hands were clenched tightly, like she feared he might throw it away. He knelt down, showing the card back to her. "What is this?" he asked. She didn't answer, only looked at him with a mix of fear and hope. The faint blue light in the card's patterns pulsed slowly, almost like it was alive. Ethan slipped it into his jacket pocket. If someone had been searching for her, this card was probably the reason. He didn't know why, but he felt like holding on to it was important. The girl tilted her head, as if she understood what he was thinking. Outside, the forest was quiet again, but the silence felt wrong. It wasn't the peaceful kind. It was the kind that made the hair on the back of his neck rise. He moved toward the broken window and peeked out. The mist made it hard to see, but he caught faint red glows moving between the trees. Not the same lights from before. These were smaller, sharper, scanning. He turned back to the girl. "We can't stay here." She didn't understand the words, but she understood his tone. When he motioned to the door, she stood up slowly, still holding onto his jacket. They stepped out into the cold night air, the shed vanishing behind them in the fog. Ethan decided to take the back route through the woods. Avoiding the dirt road, the girl followed close, her bare feet making no sound on the damp ground. She seemed light on her steps, almost too light for someone her size. Every so often she would glance over her shoulder, eyes glowing faintly in the darkness. Then the sound came again, the low mechanical hum. This time, much closer. Ethan froze, pulling the girl behind a thick tree. Through the fog, dark shapes emerged, tall, thin machines with spider-like legs, their red sensors sweeping the ground. They moved in a slow but steady line, covering every inch of the forest. One of them stopped suddenly, turning its head like top toward where they hid. Ethan's pulse quickened. He put a finger to his lips, silently telling the girl not to make a sound. She stayed completely still, but he could feel her trembling against him. The machine scanned for a long moment, then turned away, resuming its slow march. They waited until the last one passed, when the forest was quiet again. Ethan led her deeper into the woods. Finally, they reached the edge of a small, abandoned barn. The roof was half collapsed, but the walls were still standing. It wasn't safe, but it was better than being out in the open. Inside, Ethan found an old blanket and wrapped it around her. She touched the fabric like it was something strange and new. Then she pointed to his pocket, where the card was hidden. Carefully, she took it out and placed it flat on the ground with a soft hum. The glowing lines shifted into a moving image. A map. Ethan knelt down, staring at it in disbelief. It showed mountains, rivers, and symbols he didn't recognize. The girl pointed to one glowing mark, then touched her own chest. He understood this was where she came from, or where she needed to go. Before he could ask anything else, the sound of footsteps echoed outside. Not machines this time, people. He peered through a crack in the wall and saw 3 figures in black uniforms, carrying strange rifles with glowing barrels. They moved quietly, scanning the area, their eyes hidden behind dark visors. The girl's grip on his sleeve tightened painfully. Ethan whispered, "Stay down," and crawled to the far corner of the barn. The soldiers entered, boots crunching on broken wood. One of them pointed to the ground, where faint blue light still glowed from the card. Ethan cursed under his breath. They'd seen it. Without thinking, he grabbed the card, stuffed it into his pocket, and pulled the girl toward a small gap in the back wall. They slipped out just as one of the soldiers shouted. A beam of light cut through the fog behind them. Followed by the sound of pursuit, Ethan ran, half dragging, half carrying the girl as footsteps pounded closer. Branches whipped at his face, his lungs burning. The girl clung to him tightly, burying her face in his shoulder. In the distance, he saw the faint glow of his town's edge. If they could make it there, maybe they could hide. Maybe they could disappear. But as they reached the last line of trees, a shadow stepped into their path. It was not human, tall, armored, and carrying a weapon unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. The creature's eyes glowed red as it looked from him to the girl. Then, in a deep, rumbling voice, it spoke words Ethan couldn't understand, but the threat in them was clear. The alien warrior stood like a wall, blocking their path. Its armor was black and curved, almost alive, with faint red light pulsing in the seams. In one hand, it held a long weapon that hummed with dangerous energy. The other hand lifted slowly, palm open, as if ordering them to stop. Ethan's legs locked, his breath heavy in the cold air. The girl peeked from behind him, her eyes wide with terror. The alien's head tilted slightly, its gaze fixed on the card hidden in Ethan's pocket. It spoke again, the words low and sharp, like metal scraping stone. Ethan didn't understand the language, but the tone was clear. It wanted the card. The girl shook her head violently, pressing closer to him. Then she whispered one word, urgent and trembling. Run, before he could react. She grabbed his arm and pulled with surprising strength. They darted to the side. Weaving through the trees, a loud hiss burst from behind them as the alien fired. The ground where they'd stood erupted into a burst of blue sparks. Ethan didn't dare look back. The forest blurred around him as they ran, his only thought to get her somewhere safe. When they finally reached the outskirts of town, Ethan ducked into an alley behind a row of old storage buildings. They crouched low, both panting. Hard, he peeked around the corner, no sign of the alien. No soldiers, no machines. The girl's breathing slowed, but her hands were still clenched tight around his jacket. Ethan knew they couldn't hide forever. He needed answers. There was one person who might know something, an old friend named Marcus. Marcus had once worked in a classified research program for the government. If anyone could tell him what this card was, it would be him. The girl followed silently as Ethan led her through the quiet streets to a run-down workshop on the edge of town. The smell of oil and metal hung in the air. Ethan knocked twice, then once more. After a moment, the door creaked open and Marcus, a tall man with a gray beard and tired eyes, appeared. Ethan, Marcus said, frowning. It's been years. Ethan didn't waste time. I need your help, and I need you to keep quiet. Marcus glanced at the girl, his expression shifting from curiosity to something sharper. Without a word, he stepped aside and let them in. The workshop was cluttered with old machines, maps, and parts scattered across dusty tables. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out the card. The faint blue glow lit Marcus's face as he took it. His eyes widened, and for the first time, Ethan saw a flicker of fear. Where did you get this? Marcus asked, his voice low. Ethan hesitated. From her, he said, nodding toward the girl. Marcus stared at the alien girl for a long moment, then back at the card. This isn't human, Marcus said finally. This is. I've only heard rumors, but if I'm right, this is a vault key. Ethan frowned. A vault for what? Marcus shook his head. Not a vault for money, a vault for something much bigger. Maybe weapons, maybe knowledge, maybe people. The girl stepped closer, hearing the word people, and pointed to the card. Then to herself, she spoke in her soft, melodic language. and Marcus listened carefully, though he clearly didn't understand. "She wants to go there," Ethan said quietly. "Wherever it is," Marcus sighed. "Ethan, people have killed for less than this. Whole fleets have gone missing looking for it. If anyone knows you have it, you're already a target." Ethan glanced at the girl, who now stood tracing shapes in the dust on the table. She drew a circle, then a line, then another circle, a crude map. Marcus leaned in, eyes narrowing. "This matches some of the star charts I've seen," before they could say more. The sound of engines roared outside. Headlights swept across the workshop windows. Marcus's eyes went wide. "You were followed." Ethan grabbed the girl's hand, but Marcus stopped him, pressing a small metal box into his palm. "Take this if you find the vault. This will help you open it." The door rattled as heavy boots pounded outside. "Go out the back," Marcus hissed, shoving them toward a side exit. Ethan pulled the girl through a narrow hallway cluttered with crates. They slipped out into the cold night, the air sharp with the scent of rain behind them. Voices shouted, men in black uniforms, the same as before, but there was another sound too. Up, a deeper mechanical growl from the shadows of the street. The black-armored alien stepped forward, red eyes glowing. It looked at Ethan, then at the girl, then at the card in his pocket, and this time, it didn't speak. It raised its weapon and aimed straight at them. Asterisk, the alien warrior didn't hesitate. A blast of red energy lit up the night, striking the wall behind Ethan and showering them in sparks. Ethan grabbed the girl and dove behind a stack of crates, his ears ringing from the impact. The smell of burnt metal filled the air. Shouts echoed from the street as the black uniformed soldiers closed in. Ethan could hear the thud of their boots and the sharp click of weapons being new. Readied, the alien's deep voice growled something in its language, and the soldiers stopped as if they understood it for a moment. The world went silent, except for the hum of the alien's weapon. The girl clung to Ethan's arm, trembling. Her glowing eyes flicked from the alien to the soldiers. Then to Ethan, she whispered a word, short, urgent, and he didn't know what it meant, but her tone was clear. They had to move. Ethan spotted an open drainage tunnel across the street. It was risky. The street was open and exposed, but it was the only way out. He nodded to her, then counted silently. 1, 2, 3, they burst from cover. Sprinting across the cracked pavement, the alien roared and fired again. The blast scorched the ground a step behind them. Ethan dived into the tunnel opening, pulling the girl in after him. They slid down into darkness. The smell of damp stone and rust closing around them. Above, the alien barked orders. Moments later, metallic clanging echoed down the tunnel. Something was coming after them. Ethan grabbed the girl's hand and ran through the narrow passage. His boots splashing in shallow water, the tunnel twisted, turned, and finally opened into a storm grate on the far edge of town. But when they climbed out, they didn't find safety. 2 soldiers were waiting, weapons raised, hands where we can see them. One barked. Ethan froze, shielding the girl behind him before he could react. The soldiers rushed forward. One grabbed him by the arms, the other pulled the girl away. She cried out in panic, reaching for him. Ethan fought against the grip, but the soldier slammed him against the wall, knocking the wind from his chest. The girl kicked and struggled, her small hands clawing at the soldier's armor. Then, with a flash of blue light, a strange pulse burst from her palms. The soldier, holding her, was thrown back, his rifle clattering to the ground. Ethan stared in shock. He had no idea she could do that. The other soldier cursed and tried to raise his weapon. Ethan reacted without thinking, ramming his shoulder into the man's chest. They both stumbled, and Ethan grabbed the girl, pulling her toward a narrow alley. They didn't get far from the other end. The alien warrior stepped out of the shadows, blocking their escape. Its red eyes locked on them. its weapon humming with deadly energy. Behind them, more soldiers closed in. Forming a circle, Ethan pulled the girl close, his chest heaving. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Though he knew it wouldn't matter, the alien spoke again, the deep, rumbling words sending a shiver down his spine. The girl answered in the same language. Her voice was sharp, defiant. The alien tilted its head, almost curious. Then it motioned to the soldiers. Two of them stepped forward and seized Ethan's arms. Wrenching them behind his back, another grabbed the girl, ignoring her desperate kicks and glowing eyes. They dragged them toward a waiting transport, a black armored vehicle with strange symbols etched into its sides. The rear doors opened with a hiss, revealing a dimly lit interior lined with restraints. Ethan was shoved inside his wrists. Locked to a cold metal bar, the girl was strapped into a separate seat across from him. Her eyes never leaving his, the alien warrior climbed in last, sitting between them. Its gaze shifted from Ethan to the card in his pocket, without a word. It reached over and plucked the card from him. The glowing lines on its surface pulsed faster in the alien's grip. As if it recognized its new holder, Ethan strained against the restraints. "You're making a mistake," he said, though he knew they didn't understand. The alien stared at him for a long moment, then gave a slow, almost deliberate nod. It was as if it was saying, "We'll see." The transport rumbled to life, the hum of engines vibrating through the metal floor. Through the small slit of a window, Ethan saw the lights of the town fading into darkness. Wherever they were going, he knew it wouldn't be anywhere safe. And by the way, the girl's hands were clenched in her restraints. She knew it too. The transport moved for what felt like hours. Inside, the air was cold, the metal walls humming softly with each turn of the engine. Ethan sat in silence, watching the alien warrior across from him. It hadn't spoken since taking the card, but its eyes stayed on him, unblinking. The girl, strapped into her seat, kept glancing at Ethan, her glowing eyes full of questions she couldn't ask. Finally, the transport slowed through the narrow slit of a window. Ethan saw nothing but desert, endless dunes under a pale, rising moon. The vehicle stopped near a jagged rock formation that rose like broken teeth from the sand. The rear doors hissed open, and the alien warrior motioned for them to get out. The soldiers pushed Ethan forward, the sand crunching under his boots. The wind was sharp, carrying grains of dust that stung his face. The girl stumbled beside him, still bound, her thin frame struggling against the gusts. In the distance, a low rumble echoed, though the sky was empty. They were led toward a narrow path between two massive rock walls. The further they went, the darker it became, until the desert moonlight was gone. Then Ethan saw it. Faint lines of blue light carved into the stone, pulsing like a heartbeat. The alien warrior pressed the card to one of the glowing symbols. The rock wall shifted, sliding open to reveal a tunnel that descended deep underground. The air inside was warmer, but heavy with a metallic scent. They walked for several minutes until the tunnel opened into a wide chamber. Strange machines hummed in the corners, their shapes unfamiliar and alien. In the center stood a circular platform covered in glowing symbols. The alien warrior handed the card to another figure, a taller alien with armor that shimmered like liquid metal. The taller alien studied it, then turned to the girl, speaking rapidly in their language. The girl's reply was soft but firm. Her eyes locked on the card Ethan couldn't understand. But he could tell there was tension, maybe even defiance. The taller alien motioned to Ethan. Speaking again, the warrior beside him shoved Ethan toward the platform. He planted his feet, refusing to move. "What is this? Where are you taking us?" he demanded. Of course, no one answered. Then the girl suddenly called out, her voice sharp. She said something in her language, pointing at Ethan, then at herself. The taller alien hesitated, glanced at the warrior, then gave a slow nod. The soldier holding Ethan released his grip. And to his surprise, they removed the restraints. Ethan rubbed his sore wrists. The girl stepped closer, looking up at him. Her expression serious. She reached for his hand, placing it gently over the card. Her other hand rested on top. The card's light brightened instantly, lines of blue racing across its surface. Gasps echoed from the alien soldiers, even the warrior seemed taken aback. The taller alien leaned forward, studying the glow, then spoke in a tone that sounded almost like awe. Ethan realized something. The card responded to him. Just as much as it did to her, the girl squeezed his hand and said a word slowly. Clearly, as if she wanted him to remember it, he repeated it awkwardly, and she nodded. He didn't know what it meant, but from her reaction, it was important. Suddenly, the chamber shook, a deep rumble vibrating through the floor. One of the alien soldiers rushed in from the tunnel, shouting in their language. The warrior's head snapped toward the entrance, red eyes narrowing. Footsteps heavy and fast echoed from outside. Mixed with mechanical whines, Ethan looked at the girl, and she looked back. Whatever was coming wasn't part of their plan. The warrior barked orders, and soldiers began sealing parts of the chamber. But before the doors could close, shadows moved in the tunnel, not soldiers, but armored figures with different markings. Their weapons raised, blaster fire lit up the chamber. Blue and red streaks crossing the air, the taller aliens shoved the card into Ethan's hand and shouted something at the girl. Without warning, she grabbed his arm and pulled him toward a narrow side passage. The warrior roared in protest, but another blast shook the ceiling, scattering debris. They ran. The tunnel twisting sharply. Behind them, the sounds of the battle faded into the echo of their own footsteps. The girl clung to his arm, breathing hard but never slowing. Finally, they emerged into a smaller cavern lit by a single beam of moonlight. From above, Ethan caught his breath, looking around. The cavern was empty, except for one thing: an ancient door half buried in the rock, covered in the same glowing symbols as the card. The girl stepped forward, placing her hand on the surface. The light spread like veins through the stone, and with a deep groan, the door began to open. Ethan didn't know what was on the other side, but from the way the girl's eyes glowed brighter than ever, he knew it was something she had been searching for all along. The ancient door rumbled open, dust falling like rain from the stone above. A deep, cold air spilled out from the darkness beyond, carrying a metallic scent that made Ethan's skin prickle. The girl stepped forward first, her glowing eyes reflecting the faint light from inside. Ethan followed cautiously, gripping the card in one hand, his other hand brushing the wall as they entered. The space beyond was vast, much larger than he expected. Rows of tall, crystal-like structures lined the walls, each one glowing faintly from within. The air was thick with a strange hum, like the place itself was alive. As they moved deeper, Ethan realized the shapes inside the crystals weren't random. They were people. Dozens of alien figures frozen in place, their bodies preserved as if they had just fallen asleep. Some looked like the girl. Others were taller, more heavily built, and wore strange armor. Ethan stopped, stunned. "This is," he whispered, his voice trailing off. The girl turned to him, speaking softly in her language. She touched her chest, then pointed to one of the frozen figures, a woman with the same silver hair and glowing eyes. Ethan understood without words. It was someone important to her, maybe her mother, maybe her leader. In the center of the vault stood a massive machine, its core pulsing with bright blue energy. The card in Ethan's hand began to vibrate, its glow matching the rhythm of the machine. The girl motioned for him to follow, leading him up a set of stairs to a control platform. She placed her hand on a panel and then looked to him, nodding for him to do the same. Ethan hesitated. then pressed his palm to the surface. The panel came alive instantly. Symbols rushing across its screen in streams of light. The machine's hum grew louder. The crystal structures starting to glow brighter. A wave of warmth spread through the chamber, and the frozen figures began to stir. Ethan stepped back in disbelief as one of them opened their eyes. The girl's voice broke into a joyful laugh, the first time he had heard her make that sound. More figures woke, looking around in confusion, speaking in hurried alien words. The vault was coming alive again, but their moment of hope shattered when a loud explosion echoed from the entrance. Ethan turned to see shadows moving heavily. Armed attackers pouring into the vault, not the soldiers from before, but the same black-armored mercenaries that had hunted them in the forest. Their leader, taller than the rest, carried a weapon that glowed with unstable red energy. The newly awakened aliens tried to defend themselves, but they were still weak. The girl pulled at Ethan's arm, shouting urgently. He realized what she meant. They had to defend the machine, because without it, the rest of her people would never wake. Ethan spotted a strange rifle lying near one of the platforms. He grabbed it, surprised at how light it felt, when the first mercenary charged. Ethan fired a burst of blue energy, sent the attacker sprawling. The girl ducked behind cover, tossing him another weapon, smaller but faster. The fight tore through the vault, blue and red bolts lighting the air. Ethan moved from pillar to pillar, keeping the attackers away from the machine. The girl stayed close, shielding one of the panels with her own body as she worked the controls. More of her people were waking now, and some joined the fight. Their weapons strange but deadly still. The mercenaries pressed hard. Their leader charged straight for the platform, swinging a massive blade of red energy. Ethan blocked the path, heart pounding. The aliens snarled, striking with enough force to send shockwaves through the floor. They clashed again, the hum of the machine growing frantic as if it sensed the danger. Ethan ducked under the next swing, driving his weapon into the alien's armor. The blast sent the leader crashing into a crystal column, shattering it in a burst of light. The attackers hesitated. And that was enough. The girl's people surged forward, overwhelming them. One by one, the mercenaries fell or fled. Their leader dragged away by the survivors. The vault grew quiet again, the hum steady and strong. The girl approached Ethan, her expression soft. She held the card out to him again, pressing it into his hand with both of hers. Then she spoke, slowly, carefully forming the human words. You saved my people. Ethan felt the weight of her gaze, the warmth in her voice. He didn't know what would come next, but he knew this wasn't over. The vault was open. Her people were free, and somewhere in the shadows, more enemies would be coming. The vault was quiet now. The faint hum of the great machine was steady. No longer frantic, soft blue light filled the chamber, shining off the crystal walls and casting long shadows. Ethan stood in the middle of it all, his chest still heaving. From the fight around him, the girl's people moved slowly, helping each other stand. Some were still weak from their long sleep, their voices low and tired. Others had already begun repairing the broken parts of the chamber. But every pair of glowing eyes that passed him carried the same look. Gratitude. The girl approached, her silver hair brushing her shoulders. She held the card in her hands, the glow now calm and warm. When she reached him, she looked into his eyes for a long moment without speaking. Then she pressed the card against his chest, holding it there. Ethan frowned slightly. It's yours, he said softly. She shook her head. Slowly, her voice was quiet but clear. Now, yours too. Before he could answer, she reached into a pouch at her side and pulled out a small pendant. It was unlike anything he had seen, a thin silver ring around a blue crystal that seemed to hold light inside it. She placed it over his head so it rested against his chest. The pendant pulsed once, and every alien in the room stopped what they were doing. They bowed their heads toward him. Ethan froze, unsure what was happening. The girl smiled faintly. "You?" "One of us now." Her words were slow, careful. But the meaning hit him like a wave. This wasn't just a thank you. It was a bond. Something deeper than friendship. From the crowd, an older alien stepped forward, his presence calm and steady. He spoke in their language, his tone respectful. The girl translated in her broken human words. He says, "You saved our future. You choose. Your reward?" Ethan looked around, confused. Reward? The older alien gestured. They could offer him anything. Riches from their hidden worlds, advanced technology beyond human understanding. Even a place among their leaders. Ethan's eyes moved from them to the girl. She stood watching him, quiet, almost afraid of what he might choose. He thought of all the things he could ask for. A ship, a fortune. Answers to questions humanity had dreamed of for centuries. But his mind kept going back to the moment in the forest when she had clung to him in fear, and to this moment now. When her eyes carried more hope than fear. "I already have what I want," Ethan said finally. The girl tilted her head, unsure. He smiled. "You and your people safe." For a moment, there was silence. Then the older alien gave a slow, deep nod. The girl's smile grew, brighter than he had ever seen it. She stepped closer, her voice soft. "Then? We stay together." Ethan chuckled lightly. "Yeah, I think we do." The vault doors began to close again, sealing the chamber from the outside world in the distance. Deep rumbles echoed through the ground, more ships arriving. The girls? People gathered their belongings, speaking in hurried tones. Ethan turned to her. "Where are we going?" She looked toward the sound of the approaching ships, her eyes glowing with determination. "Home," she said simply. But the way she said it, Ethan knew it wouldn't just be her home anymore. It would be theirs. The older alien placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. He spoke briefly, and the girl translated with a small laugh. He says, "Once you go, you never come back same." Ethan smirked. "I think that's already true." The pendant against his chest pulsed again. And for a moment, he felt a strange warmth spread through him. It wasn't just light, it was connection. He could feel the presence of those around him, their gratitude, their trust. And he realized this was more than a reward. It was a promise. As the vaults sealed behind them, the night air rushed in. The sky above was filled with alien ships, their silver hulls glinting under the moon. The girl walked beside him, the glow of her eyes matching the stars overhead. And Ethan knew, without a doubt, his life would never be the same.